Suruhanus, the traditional healers of Guam. The work of the Suruhanus has been a practice long before the arrival of foreign peoples and continues to be an important element of Guam's culture. The purpose of our documentary was to discover what it is exactly that Suruhanus do and how they came to have their healing abilities. The practice has lasted for centuries. However, there seem to be fewer and fewer Suruhanus on Guam. This leads us to theorize that the practice is dying. We found it necessary to discover the reasons for this and to gain insight as to whether the practice will survive. We interviewed two Suruhanus who gave us information on what they do and how they received their healing abilities.
How long have you been a healer and how did you get started?
Well, I've been a healer for over 7 years now. As I was a child, I was able to see things that not everybody was able to see, and do things that not everybody was able to do, like know certain plants and what they were for. I never understood why. So I asked my mother, why is it that so and so is happening, these things are happening to me? So she explained to me that my great-grandfather was a healer.
Mr. Quintanilla, how did you become a Suruhanu?
From my grandmother, my mom's mother.
So it's a family tradition.
Yeah, traditional. So my grandmother likes to help infant, and she's the one telling me to pick up the herbs. Now, when I keep growing out and I become a teenager, I love to go to the jungle, and I found all the herbs that's for necessary to use for the purpose of the people that get sick.
What exactly do you do as a Suruhanu? What are the responsibilities you feel you have?
Well, for me, because not every Suruhanus are the same. Some are spiritually, some are just like herbal healers, some are both. If someone is sick, like they have the flu, I go and I collect medicine, herbs for them to drink. What I do is I try to ease their pain, take it away.
What are your methods as a healer? Like, do you massage or you use medicines?
Yeah, it depends on what kind of sickness the person has. If it's the totomona, yes, I pick up the herbs inside the jungle.
In carrying out our project, we found it very difficult to find Suruhanus to interview due to their reluctance to appear on camera. Dr. Trisha Lazama, a professor at the University of Guam, explains that this reluctance may be caused by U.S. naval policies that discourage Suruhanus from practicing and by the Chamorro belief of mamalaw.
At the Mark, they actually had a paper that was done in the 60s. And so when I read it, it was these people went to Suruhana X, Y, and Z. And what had happened was the mother and her child, they went to the hospital or the clinic first. And the doctor says, well, this is what's wrong. We're going to treat your daughter, X amount of days. And so the mom was going back and getting her daughter treated. Well, her daughter wasn't getting any better. So they went to a Suruhana. Suruhana gave them medicine. The daughter got healed. So what the mom did was she went back to the clinic and she says, Doc, I want to thank you for everything that you've done for my kid. She's healed, not because of what you're doing, but because I went to the Suruhana. So the doctor was upset. He was so upset. He reported her to the authorities, and so the authorities went out to the Suruhana and said, what are you doing? Don't practice. So again, this practice of being undercover went more underground. And it's not because I think they don't want to most people will say, and you'll see in the literature, is they're very secretive about their practice. Well, it's not secretive because they don't want to share. I think it's still secretive because they don't want to get in trouble. It's this theory of historical grief. Most of them, again, this idea of being a helper, humility, this idea of this sense of being mamalaw. It's like, I don't want to have pride. I don't need to tell anybody what I do. If people want to find me, they're going to be able to find me.
As mentioned, we theorized that the Suruhanu practice is dying. We asked our interviewees for their input regarding this.
Is because at the time when Dr. Workman did her study, one of the conclusions was that this was a dying art, right? And that fast forward 20 years, it was predicted, which is now, that it wouldn't be in existence anymore. And so I found it's still in existence, but it definitely is much more difficult to continue the practices.
Do you believe this practice will still exist in the next 20 years or so?
It could still be around. I'm hoping it will be around, but that all depends. Because with me, with my child, I will pass it down, and they will know. And whatever I know, they will know.
Some of the people that I interviewed were very impoverished, so it's like, well, if you had a family and you had to raise your family, and it was difficult to raise your family, the children probably saw that and said, well, I don't want to do this because our life was very hard. So that's why I think some people had a hard time identifying who they were going to pass on the tradition to.
All I can say is that it's not fake. Believe in it. That's part of our culture. That's part of our heritage. It's just the same as having faith in God. It doesn't matter what religion you believe in. Whenever you're in need, you always turn to that faith. So you can't say, oh, I'm going to go to the hospital because they'll give me medicines. They're going to test it on you and you don't know for sure. If you go to a Suruhanus and they give you medicine, you have to believe in what they're giving you. So just have faith.
Our research suggests that the reasons for the apparent decline in Suruhanus on Guam include historical grief, as Dr. Lizama says. Suruhanus were forced to practice in secret because of Spanish and American opposition towards the practice. The fear to practice publicly trickled down to later generations of Suruhanus through the stories told to them by Suruhanus who experienced the opposition. Furthermore, in today's economy, people value careers that offer more financial stability. Concerning the survival of the practice, our research suggests that it will survive as long as it is passed down from generation to generation.